Hello beautiful people, and welcome back or welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing the 24 books that I want to make sure I read in 2024. This isn't my entire TBR for the year, but these books I really want to get off my physical TBR, so I'm going to make an effort to be reading them this year. Within the 24 books that I picked out for this year, there are 5 genres that stuck out to me, so I'm going to be going through them with you guys by genre. Starting off with fantasy, then mystery/thriller, then general fiction, then autobiographies/memoirs, and then ending it off with romance novels. The first 2 books in the fantasy category are Dance of Thieves and Vow of Thieves by Mary E. Pearson. The next 3 books for the fantasy category, also, if you hear the cats running around, I apologize. They're kind of antsy right now because every time I turn on a camera, they get really intrigued. The next 3 books that I want to read are the Cruel Prince series by Holly Black. These have been very highly recommended to me and I'm excited to get into them. This series is a YA fantasy and it does have some romance in it, but from what I've heard from the people who have recommended to me, it's not romance centered, but this is like fae meets humans and all the fae despise the humans, but there is a human girl in here and we all know how that kind of stuff goes. You know, one person despises another person for something and then they fall in love, so I'm excited to read these. The next 2 books that I want to read are Once Upon a Broken Heart and A Curse for True Love by Stephanie Garber. These books are also very highly recommended and reviewed by people over here on BookTube and over on Book Talk. They're all about a girl whose true love goes to marry another and then she makes a deal with somebody who is immortal to find happiness again, and you know how that kind of stuff goes. She's probably going to fall in love with the immortal and things are either going to go really good or really bad, and I'm really excited to see how this holds up to the amount of praise that it's gotten here online. Next, there's a couple of mystery/thriller novels that I've really wanted to get into, but I just haven't had the time, so I am going to make time for them this year. The first one is The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart Turton. It's about a woman, Evelyn Hardcastle, who will die every single day, waking up as somebody new from a masquerade ball she went to where she died, and she has to put together the pieces to figure out who killed her and you know, how she died. And this just seems really up my alley. It reminds me of a mix between Clue, which happens to be my all-time favorite movie, and Board Game, and Every Day by David Levithan, which just seems right up my alley. I adored that book when I was younger and I'm really excited to get into this one. The next book is Bunny by Mona Awad. I've been holding on to this book for a while now, which tells me I need to get it off my physical TBR. This book, from what I can tell, reminds me a lot of the show Scream Queens. It is about a group of girls who call each other Bunny, and the main character of this book gets invited to become a bunny with them, and then the bunnies are doing some monstrous experiments. They're doing things that just seem out of norm, and then things start to go awry when the main character joins the bunnies, and we get to kind of see how that unravels and just kind of see what terrible things the bunnies are doing. The next book is part of a series that is the Hawthorne Legacy, which is the second book in the Inheritance Games series. I read the Inheritance Games in a day and I rated it a 5-star at the time of reading it, but when I picked up this book I just couldn't get into it. But there are, I believe, 2 more books in this series, The Final Gambit and then The Brothers Legacy. I can't remember exactly what that one's called. I really want to finish this series. 2024 is about getting books off our physical TBR, finishing series that we've never finished, and this is just part of that. I really would like to get into more series this year. And then the next book is The Death of a Bookseller. This book caught my eye specifically because any book that has to do with books always intrigues me, like Arya's Traveling Bookshop or Mr. Penumbra's 24-hour bookstore. So this being a bookseller just caught my eye, but when I opened it up, there was this note inside that made me have to buy it immediately. The note says that after originally writing this book, after 100,000 words, it was ready to go to printing. A computer error put multiple mysterious words that the author didn't add into the story. They magically appeared into the book, but they left the error in the book, and it gives you on the back the page numbers and what the words were supposed to be, and it's kind of like a little scavenger hunt, and I really want to read this year because this just seems like a fun little game to play while you're reading, like looking for these mysterious words, and then you get to go find the page number and what it was actually supposed to say on this little note. So I just thought that was super interesting, and it is a little mystery, and I really want to get back into mysteries this year. I used to read a lot more mysteries until I got pulled into a lot more fantasy and romance novels, so I'd like to get back into those this year. Next we have the fiction books that I'd like to read. These vary from historical fictions to psychological fictions, but I just wanted to add them all together to share with you guys. The next book I picked out to read is a very short book, but it's Because Venus Crossed an Alpine Violet on the Day That I Was Born. The cover immediately drew me in because it's just gorgeous. It kind of gives me like a 60s, 70s road trip kind of vibe. This book tells the story of two sisters who go on a trip together to reconnect and be closer like they were when they were younger. But when things get a little messy between siblings, one of the siblings disappears out of anger, and the other one is left to discover themselves when they're alone and just find themselves. And I think this will just be a really nice, easy, short read for this year. The next book I'd like to read this year is On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous, and I think that this book is probably going to make me emotional. It's a letter from a son to a mother who cannot read, which is the first line of the synopsis. I feel like trying to express yourself and how you're trying to survive in the current state of the world, but not being able to accurately communicate with somebody because they can't read the letters you're writing them. It pulls on my heartstrings, and I haven't even read the book yet, so I'm excited to see if this makes me emotional. I love a good emotional book. The next book that I'd like to read is Pure Color, and this book, again, like some of these other ones, has been on my physical TBR for a long time, but sometimes I just can't pull myself into reading fiction books because I know that a lot of the time I do get emotional. I'm very empathetic, which makes it kind of hard to read books. This also seems like a book that's probably going to make me emotional. It is about American life after war in Europe. It's about tragic love stories, dancing, drinking, going to the clubs, just living life in that time. I don't think I've read an Ernest Hemingway book before, and I feel like it's time to do that. The next book is something that I am sure many of you guys have seen before. It is The Secret History by Donna Tartt. This was kind of hard for me to choose where it's supposed to go. I know that it's psychological, it's thriller, it's fiction, and so I'm just putting it here. This next book could also be kind of mystery as well as fiction, and that is Chorus by Rebecca Kaufman. This book seems really intriguing. This book is about 7 siblings retelling their versions of an event that happened in between the early 1900s and the 1950s. I'm excited to see how the testimonials go in this novel and what the end result is. And I haven't seen too much of this book online, so I think it'd be cool to share my own thoughts on it. Next is another book that I have had forever and I need to read it. I've wanted to read it, but I just haven't gotten the pull to read it. But 2024 is the year. 2024 is the time for my physical TBR to go from like all the way up here to maybe like down here, you know? At least eye level with me because I am drowning in my physical TBR. And that book is All the Light We Cannot See, which is another book I'm sure is going to make me cry this year. Next, I want to share with you guys the memoirs / autobiographies that I want to make sure I read this year, though I'm sure there are plenty more that I'm going to add to my list, but these are the ones that I actually have the physical copies of. The first one is Crying in H Mart, and this is a book that I've already started, but I didn't have a chance to finish it because at the time of me starting it, I was in between traveling, and so I want to make sure to finish it this year because I was bawling while reading it, so I know that it's going to be a good book once I finish it. The next book is Have I Told You This Already by Lauren Graham, and I absolutely adore the show Gilmore Girls, so I just feel like this is a necessity for me to read. Lauren Graham plays a witty character that loves coffee just as much as I do, and I feel like Lorelai Gilmore and I are very similar in a lot of ways, and I feel like her autobiography it'll make me laugh, it might make me cry. I'm not exactly sure what I'm in store for here, but I'm really excited to read more about her. The next book is Speak Okinawa, and this is a book that I have kind of put off reading because, again, like a lot of these, I just know that I'm gonna get really emotional, and sometimes I feel like I shouldn't be putting myself through that. I can't take in this media all that often, like these really heartfelt or really painful stories, whether they're in book form, show form. I can't not bawl my eyes out. So I've put this one off for a while. I know that this story is going to be absolutely amazing. I've heard so many good things about this book, and I really want to read it for myself and feel all the emotions that I'm going to be feeling. So this is definitely high on my list this year. Lastly are the romance novels that I want to make sure that I read this year. There are 1,000,001 romance novels on my TBR list, but these are a couple that I have physically and I've had them for a while now, and I just need to read them. A lot of them are very popular, and I need to get on the train of reading some of these so I don't feel that FOMO feeling, you know? The first one is Christina Lauren's Soulmate Equation. I've had this book for a minute now. I am ready to see the romance. This book reminds me of Ali Hazelwood's books with the plot. It has to do with finding love in a science setting. And for those of you who don't know, Ali Hazelwood writes STEM romances, and I am a woman in STEM, and so I am immediately pulled to them. I'm not in the science portion of STEM, but I do still get pulled to them all the same, so I really want to get into this one and see how close it is to Ali Hazelwood's, because Ali Hazelwood is an auto-buy author for me. I absolutely love her work. The next book is Funny You Should Ask by Lisa Sussman. This is a book that I was pulled in by the cover. This cover is gorgeous, and I know a lot of people who picked this one up picked it up because of the cover. I know they say don't judge a book by its cover, but when a cover is this beautiful, the book has to be good, right? And again, this is another book where it's kind of book stuff inside a book, because the main character is a writer, and if any of you guys have read Book Lovers by Emily Henry, I absolutely adored that book, and I feel like this one could have similar vibes, and I'm just ready to read some really cute romances this year. The next one I'm only counting as one book because I don't know if I will get to reading the entire series, but I believe it's a 5-part series. I might be wrong about that, but it is the Addicted series. This is a spicy romance, so for those of you who don't like spice and want more of a closed door romance, this one will not be for you. But some of us just get really pulled into some of the spicy stuff every now and again, and this series has been really highly rated, and I've gotten it recommended to me before, so I'm finally going to be reading it. I have the first and the second one of the series. I don't have the rest of it, so if I like the first two, I will get the rest and devour them. Lastly is a YA romance that I have heard so much about, and that is Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter. I have had this book for a minute now, and I just never picked it up after getting it. I don't know why. I think the YA part kind of threw me off of it. I like YA books as much as the next gal, but I don't tend to be gravitated to them as much. But when the first page of the prologue has a Notting Hill quote, I feel like I'm going to absolutely love this book. I love when books incorporate like rom-com quotes because I am an avid enjoyer of rom-coms. So I'm going to read this one this year. I know there are a lot of YouTubers that I watch that this is their all-time favorite book or one of their favorite books of the year. It's time to read this one. And that is going to finish us off for today's video. Those are the 24 books that I want to make sure to read in 2024. And if you guys are interested in seeing me read these books, I'm sure a lot of these I will be showing off my opinions and just me reading them in general here on my channel. So go down and subscribe and click the notification bell if you're interested in seeing that kind of stuff. And I will see you guys in the next one.